you already know William Grant & Sons from brands like Hendrix, for instance, or Glenfiddich. But here to tell us more about their new brand, Discarded, and how that is tackling waste across the industry, please welcome their global head of innovation, Tom Stannard. Tom.
Hey, how you doing? Brilliant.
Got your clicker?
Yeah, will do. Hey guys, appreciate you just coming in from previous session, but I'll get started. So, my name's Tom, and I head up New to World Innovation at William Grant & Sons. And my job is to create the drinks brands of the future. And I think actually, in a few minutes' time, you get an opportunity to sample Discarded as well. And the purpose of this session is to talk to you about sustainability in spirits. And so when I'm looking at new brands of the future in the drinks industry, the really important thing that I first look at is we've got to move beyond the category. From a consumer standpoint, we have to have the consumer at the heart of everything we do, and you'll hear that a lot today. But I really mean it. In order to stand out and differentiate, we really need to capture the consumer mega trends of the industry. And there's no bigger trend, is there, than sustainability. It's an undeniable human truth. The age of disposability is over. And I guess as way of articulating that in spirits, we want to talk today about Discarded Spirits Company, which is a brand that we made at William Grant & Sons. And effectively, the goal of the brand is to take would-be wasted ingredients and transform them into delicious drinks. So I guess as kind of way of introduction, I thought it'd be helpful just to, lay out our brand architecture. And I think, when we're talking about being pioneers, so sustainability in spirits needs a pioneer. We're small. We've just started. We started in 2018. We've just launched our third liquid this year. But we need to start somewhere. It needs to be a small brand with a beating heart. So we want to be pioneers in this space. And we've got a lofty vision. So if I was to tell you that in the food and drink industry, that over 70% of all waste is preventable. So our goal here is to reverse needless waste in our industry. Again, you've got to have that hearty vision and mission to capture and initiate a movement. And our promise, we don't want to dismiss the discarded. Too often brands dismiss the discarded. We want to embrace the discarded. We want to champion the discarded in everything we do. And that's a consumer promise, whether it's our liquids, which we'll talk about, whether it's our packaging, which we'll talk about, or whether it's our serve strategy and the way that we activate. And look, finally, if we are to initiate a movement, we cannot do it alone. We need to bring the crowd with us and create a community of zero waste pioneers. And so our call to action to consumers is to reuse creatively. And we'll talk a bit about that in a minute. So I guess I wanted to kickstart with our liquids. As a spirits company, that's probably the best place to start. There may be an opportunity to have a try at the bar later on. But I think, you're probably sitting there thinking, what is Cascara? And I haven't heard about vermouth in a very long time. But the key thing here is the input to this concept. So we were inspired by the waste produced in the coffee industry. So in coffee farms, and you can see here, you've got the cascara, which is the discarded fruit of the coffee berry. So the bean is the good stuff that you drink day in, day out. But the outer cherry, the fruit, is often discarded. And what you'll see is, when you go to coffee plantations, you'll see mountains and mountains of tons of cascara simply rotting away. But actually, what we thought was that we can reuse that ingredient as an extract. So what we do is it's dried, it's fermented, it's then steeped in alcohol to create what we call an extract. And that is the perfect infusion ingredient to a vermouth. So that's one element. So the inspiration is the waste in the coffee industry. Cascara is the tool that we use, and it creates this delicious extract. But also vermouth, bit of a dusty old category, something that maybe is in grandmother's cupboard, something that potentially people haven't heard about for a long time. But premium vermouth is on the rise. a vermouth and tonic is half the ABV of a gin and tonic, so more for the moderating consumption. And so what's interesting about vermouth is it's a sherry-based vermouth. And our vermouth that we use is repurposed from our whiskey distillery. And so what's that all about? Well, its primary purpose is to season empty whiskey casks up in our distillery. So you would have heard of single malt cask finishes, a cognac finish or a white wine finish or a rum cask finish. And this is taken from our sherry cask finishes in our single malt. So again, what happens is the sherry is primary purpose is to season and impart flavor into the wood of the whiskey cask. Then it's emptied, the whiskey goes in for the final stage of maturation, and then that sherry type finish is imparted into the whiskey at the end. And that typically is often disposed of or sold on, in this case, to vinegar farms who then would reuse it. But it forms the base of our Cascara vermouth. So what you get is a very combined and blended with the Cascara extract, you get this delicious, kind of accessible, very versatile vermouth. There's two elements of discarded components in our liquid. And then we get on to the banana peel rum. So very similarly, we were inspired by a waste of every day. You know, people think it's brilliant. We just chuck a banana skin in the bin or chuck it on the road because it's going to compost. Yeah, that's quite right. But actually, we're missing a really unique flavor. So what we discovered when you, again, dry and ferment and steep it in alcohol is it's got this delicious banana peel extract. And it's kind of one of those fruity flavors that, you know, it's toffee first and then it's fruit in the background. It lends itself perfectly for an infusion into aged rum. And so what's the base of this rum? Again, if you think about the sherry in exactly the same way, the rum is repurposed from our cask finishing cycle up in our distillery. So we reuse that rum, aged rum, as the base of our banana peel rum. So you get this kind of liquid banana bread type finish that can be used in an old-fashioned or drunk straight, mixed with ginger ale or in a daiquiri. And so they're the two liquids that we've launched. And the last liquid that we'll talk about is the Chardonnay Vodka, which was recently announced. And again, so with this one, hopefully it's going to come up. There it is. We're inspired by the waste produced in the wine industry. Here we go. Guys are coming out with vodka sodas just in time. So I know it's probably only midday, isn't it? And you probably haven't had lunch, but hopefully you can have a little taste of our vodka and soda. So Chardonnay Vodka, what on earth is that? We're inspired by the waste produced in the wine industry. So you know, in the initial stages of the wine press, where the juice is pressed out of the grapes, the residual fruit, stems and seeds are simply wasted. Again, it can be used as fertilizer or sent to landfill. Yeah, of course, it's going to compost, but it's a whole ton of waste that can be reused creatively. So what do we do here? Well, we distill the pomace to form the base of this Chardonnay vodka. And what's the second component? Well, we've got a slight flavor infusion, again, which has been inspired from the wine industry. So when you get alcohol-free wine, you get two components. So when the wine is sent through a centrifuge to strip out the alcohol, you get two byproducts. The first is the alcohol-free wine, which is bottled and sold. The next is the wine essence, the wine alcohol, which is stripped out of the wine. And again, typically that's sent to destruction or sold on to perfumeries to reuse. But what's great and what really surprised us when we're tasting this wine essence is it retains an element of the wine flavor, and in this instance, a Chardonnay profile. So you get that kind of lychee, limey, zesty, smooth finish. And that is just incredibly exciting as an innovator wanting to build on this platform of reuse creatively. So there you have it. You've got a Cascara vermouth inspired by the waste of the coffee industry. You've got banana peel rum, which is inspired by everyday waste that we throw away. And then you've got a Chardonnay vodka, which is about, embracing the waste, giving waste a new life in the wine industry. So there are liquids. But how about our packaging? Well, look, I won't spend a huge amount of time on this. Definitely can chat through the questions. But we've recently released a zero waste approach to packaging. And I think when it comes to sustainability and being zero waste pioneers, as we all should be, it's about step by step, isn't it? And so with our liquids, we feel like we've gone on a road of discovery. And we've unlocked some really interesting concepts. When it comes to packaging, in our mind, it's about choices. It's about choices to use something which is recyclable or not. And there are so many different materials out there that cannot be recycled. And so in the universe of recyclable components, we made sure that our pack was made from a higher recycled content as possible and also 100% recyclable. So it's about choices when it comes to zero waste packaging. And I guess finally, on our kind of reuse creatively theme, it's about how we show up and behave as a brand. And this brand is in its infancy, right? So we haven't got it all right. But we've talked about our liquids, we've talked about our packaging, and now we're going to talk about our cocktails and our zero waste approach to cocktails. Well, look, I think when it comes to reuse creatively, there's just an enormous amount of creativity that we can initiate, but also encourage from our users and our audience. And so it's really important that throughout our Instagram or our social or our experiential or through our events or our tone of voice, that we've got this tone of invitation. We want consumers to participate with us. We want people to contribute to a zero waste philosophy. And it's super important that we really kind of use this as an invitation to contribute rather than, a preaching platform. Zero waste techniques, which we talked about, and hopefully we'll have time to show, it's for me around a tool, it isn't a weapon. We've got to be humble with that we're bringing people on the journey, step by step. And I think, lastly, is that, we're open for conversation. As I said to you before, we can't do this alone. So what we need to do is we need to speak to like-minded people in the industry who share that same ambition of reversing needless waste in food and drink industry. And here are two examples. So if you've been encouraged or interested in what I've had to say, go and check out these two guys that we've recently been in conversation with. So one guy is Doug. He heads up Silo, which is a zero waste food restaurant in London and in Brighton. He also looks after a zero waste cooking school, and he's super passionate about transforming waste into treasure. One quote that sticks out for me is that he says that waste is simply a void of imagination, which is quite punchy, but really interesting guy because he has pioneered the zero waste food movement. And the second guy I'd like you to check out is Rich Woods. So he's the At The Cocktail guy, and he is the co-founder of Scout Bar, which is all about living off the land. And he's just been a brilliant kind of ambassador for Discarded and excited about what we're doing. But he makes some crazy drinks using zero waste techniques. So go and check him out. So I guess, we've talked about our liquids, we've talked about our packaging, we failed with the videos, let's see how we get on. You've had a taste. I'm not sure how much time I've got left now, so how long have we got? A couple more minutes, okay. Let's just check in with the guys, see if the films have loaded up. We got time for one film? We've had a negative, I'm afraid. But you know what? Let me pause there. Let's have some questions and see how we go.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. Apologies for those technical issues there. So, Tom, let's jump into questions. If you've got a question, chuck it on the app, and we'll put that on the screen. But I've got some questions for you to kick off in the meantime, though, Tom. So, I mean, in some ways, I love the product and the positioning, but in some ways it's quite counterintuitive, right? I mean, for decades we've taught consumers that it's only the finest ingredients and all that sort of stuff. What's the response been like, the initial uptake?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think provenance will always be key, won't it? I think instead of just a destination, it has to be about purpose now. And I think that's what we're saying. So, our goal is to, initiate the education of what it takes to pioneer the zero waste movement. We're at the very beginning of that. From an uptake perspective, our products are in Waitrose and the top bars in London. We're about to launch in key markets around the world. The UK really has been kind of the epicenter from an on-trade, from a bar perspective. We're starting to see that extend into the grocery channel. So we've had real, and Sam's our global brand ambassador, and every conversation he has, he comes away with, another kind of nugget of partner or people wanting to contribute into the cause. And I feel really excited that we've just kind of announced the Chardonnay Vodka, which is obviously more of a mainstream spirit to understand and to apply. So great uptake so far, many more to come.
Very cool. And talk me through, from a innovation perspective, this is a house of innovation after all. I mean, driving something like this through the company, it's quite different. Your supply chain's all different, your packaging's all different. Even the way you bring it to life from a marketing perspective seems quite unique as well.
Yeah,
how's
totally.
It been?
It's really hard, isn't it? Innovation generally is hard. It takes a lot longer, there's much more risk. We're asking our supply chain teams to go outside their comfort zone. We're asking consumers to understand another layer to spirits when they're going out and they just want to have some fun and socialize. Actually, we're asking them to engage with us at a second level. So I think sort of consumers and internally, it has been and will always be tough to succeed in innovation. But I guess, my job is to make sure that some succeed. And in order for that, that killer combination of category times consumer trend to unlock an opportunity, we feel like with this one, we're onto a winner.
Okay. Tom, we've got our first question. This is exciting. Thank you, guys. Do you think sustainability has become more important to consumers over lockdown?
Definitely. I think people are way more aware of their consumption, way more, as we're not flying anywhere. So I think generally, as a philosophy and a mindset, people are way more open to the opportunity of sustainability and reuse. I think people it's quite a high barrier to entry. People don't know where to start. So I think I just encourage people to start with your plastic bag, your reusable mask, and go from there. If we had the videos, which I'm sure we'll get them to you somewhere, that's ways that you can participate in everyday waste at home, whether it's reusing coffee grounds in order to make an espresso martini, whether it's using kind of citrus husks to make a citrus cordial for Mai Tais and daiquiris, etc. So I think it's about education, but also lowering the bar to entry, making sure that we're tackling sustainability one sip at a time.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tom. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for.
Thank you very much.
But thank you very much.
Thanks.
Great.